on WCIA 3 Plus. With your host, Kelly Finley. This is The New Kid on the Block.
Welcome to The New Kid on the Block. I am Kelly Finley. Very excited to have you here and, as always, introduce you to leaders in our community, sometimes having very tough discussions, but they're needed discussions, especially when it's to protect our youngest residents in our community. As I do every week, I have my guests introduce themselves, tell you which organization they're with, and then we get right to the conversation at hand. Great to have you here today.
Thank you so much for having me. My name is Jean Wolgast, and I'm the director of the Child First Center, and we are located in Decatur. We serve both Macon and Piatt County, and we are a children's advocacy center that works with sexually abused children and children who witness violent crimes, and I'm so glad that you had me here today.
Yeah, thank you for accepting my invite. Let me go ahead and give everybody the backstory of how this happened. So I was anchoring a newscast, and I misspoke. And you took the time to educate me in an email. And instead of being offended, I leaned into that email because we're not perfect and we can all learn. And as a mother, and as someone who is a very proud advocate for families, I wanted to learn more about who you are and what you do. So thank you for educating me.
Well, thank you. And I appreciate that you accept that in the spirit that it was offered. And you are not the only one. I reached out to several of the media outlets. Mm-hmm. It is just something that when children find themselves victims of child sexual abuse, and sometimes the kids, especially the teenagers, don't always perceive themselves as victims, but use of the language of inappropriate relationships or the child engaged in sexual relationship with the adult, those types of things are, the child is a child and the adult is responsible. And so that's where we feel we have to advocate and educate the community.
Please don't stop. Please don't stop, because I think most people in our hearts, we're trying to do the right thing.
Yes.
But
yes.
Again, we may stumble, we may fumble, we just may not be that day for us. But knowing that you're on our team helping us to be better, which means a better life for children, it's a win-win across the board. Let's talk about how long you've been doing this.
Oh, I've been doing this a very long time. Mm-hmm. I've been in social services since 1989, but I've been in this position with the Child Advocacy Center, now the Child First Center, since 2002. So 24 years I've been in this role working as an advocate for children. Before that, I was a school counselor. I worked with runaway and suicidal kids at the Youth Advocate Program. Before that, worked with kids on, who are on probation and supervised their community service hours. Been working with kids for a long time. I've been a foster parent and adoptive parent, but in this role, it's been 24 years of working in this field.
Wow. Where did this love come from of wanting to be that voice for sometimes the youngest person as part of the conversation?
I'm not really sure exactly where it hit me, because when I went to college, I was an art major. But I joke all the time that my mom was a social worker before social workers really had a label. Yeah. And I think I just absorbed some of that. And I come from a huge family. I am number 7 of 7 kids. And so I've always been around kids and have nieces and nephews and great nieces and nephews that I've lost count of. So I've always enjoyed being around kids and advocating for them.
Along those lines, because I love to ask my guests this question, is where were you born?
I was actually born in Fairbury, Illinois, and my hometown is Danforth, Illinois, which doesn't even have an exit off of I-57, so I went to school.
Just in case we were headed that way.
It was 550 people. We used to joke 550 people, and 50 of those were actually in the nursing home.
Wow.
It was very small, but I went to school in Gelman, Gelman High School, and then it became Iroquois West.
And then after that, when you mentioned that you were an art major, but where did you go to college?
I went to Millikan University in Decatur and then stayed in Decatur.
Love that. So as you were growing up, being 7 of 7, the 7th, that's really a lucky number, by the way. I'm sure you've been told that.
Yes.
But as you were growing up, did you always think, I want to keep my talents local? Or did you think that whatever I grow up to do, I want to go far away from home? Like, what was your thought process? Because You seem like a walking angel. I mean, based on what you're doing for so many kids, I need to know the scoop.
It's really kind of bizarre. I couldn't wait to get out of the small town. I mean, I just could not wait. I wanted to graduate early. My mom wouldn't sign the paper. I was going to community college and high school and working a couple of jobs and doing community theater, but I couldn't wait to get out of that small town. And I am so grateful now that I was raised there in that community. My neighbors, my childhood friends were still in touch. So it was a great community to be raised in, but I thought I was going to move to the big city, that I was going to be a graphic artist and design album covers, and that's where I thought I was headed, and that's not at all where I
Album
ended
covers. I mean, that's very specific. Like, what type of music are you talking about?
Oh, I was a huge Styx, Boston, Journey, Foreigner. That's me.
some good music. I missed that time, huh? Okay, so what you're saying is what a lot of us kind of shake our heads at, because when we're younger, we just think we want to go so far, and we just can't believe we grew up like this. But as you get older, and as you set your roots down, you realize how blessed you were to
very much
to grow up
very
around.
much.
Who did you look up to as you were growing up?
As I was growing up, I was into music, and so like I don't know, just looking at the bands, I really looked up to them. But I will say that I did look up to my mom. She was really my personal hero. When I say I'm 7 of 7, she actually was married before, had 6 small children, and was widowed in her late 20s.
In her late 20s?
In her late 20s, widowed with 6 small children.
Wow.
And no driver's license, and working as a waitress. And she had those six children that she raised pretty much by herself until she, I don't know if it's like 11 years later. Maybe she met my dad, 10, 11 years later, met my dad, and they got married, and then they had me. So I was her 7th child, but I was his only biological child. So all the other 6 were significantly older than I. So I think the closest one, I think she was 14.
Oh, you had a lot of alone time with mom and dad.
Yeah, so in some ways I was an only child, solo child, but then in others, like, we're a really tight-knit family, so we always got together.
I love that. And that helps to kind of set the foundation of this conversation as to your love of children, giving back, understanding what it means to be seen and heard, especially in the capacity that you're in. You mentioned that the Child First Center, it underwent a name change. Why so?
When the center opened in 1999, it was called the Macon County Child Advocacy Center, and the state's attorney at the time and the people working in the victim witness services, the victim witness coordinator, founded the center. And so because it was under the county, they called it the Macon County Child Advocacy Center. And then we expanded to serve Piatt County as well. And one of the things we were talking about is we're not just limited to Macon County. And then we talked about, our philosophy and our mission and the child first philosophy. Everything we do is based on the needs of the child, not what law enforcement needs right then for their investigation, prosecution, not what the state's attorney wants, not what DCFS even wants. Like their mission is child safety. But when we're interviewing a child and we're working with a family, we keep the needs of the child first and foremost in all of our decision making, and we try to foster and facilitate that in all of our multidisciplinary team meetings. So that's when we decided on the name change, the Child First Center.
It fits perfectly. Your Child First doctrine, which you shared with me, I want to read this because it really is powerful. Child First doctrine: the child is our first priority, not the needs of the family, not the child's story, not the evidence, not the needs of the courts, not the needs of police, child protection, attorneys, etc. The child is our first priority.
Yes, and that is, it is on our wall in the what's called our team observation room. So when a forensic interviewer is actually interviewing a child regarding any of the allegations or what they've witnessed, what they've experienced, law enforcement, DCFS are observing in another room nearby, and that is on that team room so that we keep that in mind all the time, daily, with what we're doing.
Do you ever find yourself watching someone read that for the first time and kind of catching themselves? Because in reality, this is why we are here.
Sometimes the first time, sometimes even those who, who have been doing this for years, and we just want so badly to keep this child safe, and we want so badly to build a solid case that can be prosecuted and hold the offenders accountable. And sometimes we just can't make that happen, or the child's not ready to disclose everything that we're pretty sure is in there. And it's still hard because sometimes we want to push, and it's not healthy for the child for us to push sometimes.
There are people right now who may be watching as we're up against our first break who say, I need you, I need to reach you, I don't know what to do. What's the best way for them to? Is that email? Is that a phone number? Is that social media?
You can reach out via social media, but I say the best thing usually in these situations is just to have the phone call. And our number is 217-422-6294. If there is an allegation of child abuse that you need to report, you can call your local law enforcement. You can call the DCFS hotline at 1-800-25-ABUSE. And so if there's something to report, you can do that. If you're not sure, if you just want to talk something out, ask some questions, then just call the Child First Center, and we'll help coach you through what needs to happen next.
All righty. We'll mention these numbers throughout the rest of the interview. We're going to take our first break. When we come back, we're going to talk about all the services that you offer to the children and for the families as a whole, and ways in which people in the community can give back right now. Quick break, back with more on the New Kid on the Block right after this. Back to the New Kid on the Block. Usually when you tune in, we're laughing, we're joking. Not that we're not going to smile, but this is a very heavy topic. But it's a needed topic to talk about. My guest, she is the director of the Child First Center, which is a children's advocacy center that covers Macon and Piatt County. Jean, you are explaining more as to what you do and the services that you provide. Tell us more about how you provide services for not just the children, but the families as a whole.
Right. When a report comes into the Illinois Department of Children and Family Services and or to law enforcement regarding an allegation of sexual abuse, what we call sexploitation, kids who witness violent crimes. We've had children who have witnessed the homicide of their parents or another loved one. When those reports come in, we actually work with law enforcement and DCFS. They're the ones who call us, and we provide the forensic interviews of children for law enforcement and DCFS in those situations. And what that means is we have trained forensic interviewers that this is what they do every day. They are trained in child development. They're trained in interview skills to make things appropriate for the child's development and skill level. They don't put words into the children's mouths. It's safe, objective, neutral, fact-finding interview of kids regarding some very difficult things. And while the child is being interviewed, then we have advocates who are available to meet with family members or caregivers, whoever's accompanying that child to the interview, to talk with them about our array of services. And so we provide emotional support. We provide linkage to specialized medical services if that's needed, counseling, therapy referrals, housing, help with orders of protection, whatever the family's going to need to get through this difficult time and help this child recover to the best way that we can. So we provide all those services at the center, and if the case is accepted for prosecution, if the case is charged in the criminal court, then our advocates work with that child and that family throughout the length of that case and the judicial process. So if a case is going to be charged, our advocates work with the state's attorneys in both counties to help educate and prepare that child if they have to testify, if the parents are a witness or a sibling is a witness. We work with them to prepare that case, to prepare them, and we accompany them to court through that whole process, assist them with victim impact statements. They have options. They have rights as a crime victim to present a statement in whatever way they see fit. Sometimes they'll have us read them or say something or stand with them. So we're with them from the beginning, from the interview all the way through the prosecution if a case is charged. And if a case is not charged, we still help link them to whatever services they need and follow to the conclusion.
That is so much that you do. And it's heavy.
It's heavy sometimes,
And
yes, it is.
As you were just detailing that, I think about the children who are going through so much when they didn't even ask to be here. Right. And they're in a situation where they're being harmed and forever changed in such a negative way, and that they have to find their voice. And as an advocate, you and your team are helping them to do that.
Yeah, I have some amazing, amazing staff. So we have 2 forensic interviewers, we have 2 advocates, and we have 1 crisis intervention counselor on staff. And then I have a part-time administrative assistant who kind of comes in 5 to 10 hours a week and helps me make sure that the bills get paid and the folders get made and the copies get made and people get what they need. But I have an amazing staff. So they do some very tough things. And so I can't say enough about the wonderful work that they do.
Yeah, I want to thank them as well, because it's just so powerful what you're sharing, but so sad and disheartening that these services are even needed. Some of these kids are seeing some of the worst things possible, but they're surviving. And we'll talk about that a little bit later in the show as to some success stories and feedback that you've heard from some of your clientele. How do you keep your peace during all this?
Well, as a team, as a staff, we're very, very close, and also with our law enforcement and DCFS partners. So we're pretty good about supporting each other, being a safe place to listen. So as a team, that's something that we do. I also facilitate staff retreats and just mental health, take care of yourself time. Like Friday, we had a really rough week, so Friday afternoons, like, okay, everybody, if your stuff's all done, like, just leave for the day. So we actually went out to eat Mexican together, and a couple of us went to thrift stores. It was just a little bit of retail therapy.
Nice combo. Guacamole cures it all.
Sometimes it helps.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good. That's that balance.
Yes.
Right?
So as a team, we're big into self-care and letting each other know, like, I think you've kind of had it for the day. Like, I got this one.
Because I would think that it's very easy to take all this home with you. Right? Because it's not like 5 o'clock, we wash our hands and we keep moving.
Right. It's tough. Years ago, I picked a billboard, just a spot on an overpass on the way home. And it's just kind of the spot that I pick, or that's my attempt to turn off the office and turn on the home. Mm-hmm. And so spiritually is also a place where I go. I have a huge, just faith, my faith, my church family, my own family. So I just have the spot in the road where I pick, and that's where I say a prayer and switch my music and switch gears before I get home. And then there are still days where it's really, really tough. And I learned very early on, I say to my kids, like, I know you really want me and I really want to hear about your day, but I really need 2 to 3 minutes just to figure out where I'm at and who I am, because otherwise you're going to get the really crappy version of me. So
that's real.
Just give me a couple minutes.
Let me breathe. I
want to hear you. I want to know, but I want to be able to pay attention to you. And right now I can't.
That is so understandable. And it's as moms, I know we can share this, but that's a big deal. I mean, we're told to always be on and always have the right answers and help this person and do this, and you want to, but you can't pour from an empty cup.
Exactly right.
Okay. I'm glad you mentioned that the angel with with powerful wings is who you are. My goodness. Okay, so we talked about the fact of how this conversation even started because of a newscast and a script that I read, and that's why you say language matters. Talk more about that when it comes to kids being kids, adults being adults, and what you want people to know the next time they read an article, the next time they watch a newscast, the next time they're trying to help.
Okay. Language matters. Words matter. I've always struggled, just in the nature of what we do, I've always struggled with the word grooming, because as a child, grooming meant do your hair, make sure you're clean, brush your teeth. It seemed to be all positive things, but somehow it is the term that's been used when people are preparing a child for abuse. It's, being all nice to them, getting in with their family, making themselves a trusted resource. Sometimes they'll buy kids gifts and do all these things just to entice a child so that they can sexually abuse them and sometimes even physically abuse them or take pictures and use it for sexploitation. So words do matter in that way. And when we have things that say, a child engaged in an inappropriate sexual relationship with an adult, well, as a parent, when we're talking about, teenagers, yes, they might make some unhealthy decisions, unsafe decisions, but the adults are responsible. The age of consent in Illinois is 17. So,
well, that sentence that you just shared, how would you fix it? If you could jump through the screen and edit that line, how should it be said or read?
That the adult or the alleged perpetrator manipulated, enticed a child into an incident of sexual abuse, or the alleged perpetrator victimized this child by. So put the action and the responsibility with the perpetrator. And yes, this child was a victim, or the child survived sexual abuse or manipulation at the hands of. It's just put the responsibility where the responsibility goes.
See, when you hear it like that, it makes perfect sense.
But it's hard to find the words. And it's hard to say that, okay, sexual abuse, sexually assaulted, was raped, was manipulated. But that's also helping the kids to understand, you may have not yelled or screamed for help or told somebody no or told somebody right away, but that's because you were manipulated and you are not of the age of consent. Kids, their brains aren't yet developed. They don't have that impulse control or those things in place till they're in their mid to late 20s. But of the legal age of consent is 17. The adults who did it are responsible.
I never looked at it like that, because if that child were to see that newscast or to read that article, we're letting them know that no matter how they responded, they're the victim, and we shouldn't re-victimize them
right.
by giving the power of understanding to the adult who should have known better.
Right. The adult should have known better. And we've got to raise our kids to identify these uncomfortable situations or their unmet needs. A lot of child victims are kids who don't feel like they have enough attention, or there are kids who are, quite frankly, we have an increase in these victims who are online without adequate supervision. We hand little kids age 8 with a phone with internet capability and no supervision or parental controls, and then wonder how in the world.
That's right.
And I sometimes get frustrated with my own kids, and when they hand their phones to they just get my grandkids' phones, and I say, you just invited a million strangers, you just opened your front door and all of the windows to your house and sent somebody an open invitation.
That's right. That's right.
Makes me crazy.
Oh, we're going to talk about that after the break, because I want to talk to you about the red flags that parents should look out for. And listen, parents are trying so hard. Whether you're a single parent, you have two parents in the home, maybe whatever your situation. So any tips that you can give for parents that they can immediately start working on, I think this would really change the trajectory of this conversation and the situation. All right, we're going to take another break. When we come back, we're going to talk more about your grandkids. You took on a whole new tone when you were talking about them, and that's important so that they know that they've got someone fighting the good fight for them, as well as more on how the community can get involved and help, because this type of mission takes money. Quick break, back with more on the New Kid on the Block right after this. Back to the New Kid on the Block. I'm your host, Kelly Finley. My guest, she has been telling us more about how we can be the voice for children who have been through some traumatic situations in their life, and how, of course, words matter, but actions do as well. Jean Wolgast is the director of the Child First Center, which is a children's advocacy center covering Macon and Piatt County. You've been doing this since 2002.
Yes, I have. Been doing a long time. And I was doing similar work before that, but
And along the way, you are, of course, you're a mother because you've mentioned you're a grandmother. But did you find yourself better at your job once you became a mom and a grandma because now you're seeing it from a different lens?
it's interesting. I think so because I also try to figure out where the parents are coming from and what we can do to build up the parents and emotionally support them and not play the blame game because as parents, I truly believe nobody sets out to be a crappy mom or crappy
right.
dad. Like
That's
nobody
right.
sets out to do a poor job. I believe that nobody intends to be horrible. But it helped me with perspective on how to talk with parents about, accept responsibility, but don't play the blame game and don't make them feel horribly guilty. How can we do better and how, where do we need to go from here?
When you think about if the parents were raised in trauma
Yes.
and then they become a parent, it would, you have to be so intentional with changing.
Yes, exactly right. And I was a foster parent for years. I am an adoptive parent. I've worked with biological parents who are trying to get their kids back and try to help them get to services. So I've seen different perspectives, and there's a lot. But that trauma left unaddressed just tends to repeat. And sometimes we can go super liberal, like, oh, okay, well, I'm just not going to discipline my kids because I'm afraid I'm going to be like the parents that I had and overdo it. So then they don't do anything, or they'll repeat.
It's like there's no middle ground.
It's finding the middle ground. Get the help you need if you've experienced trauma as a child or trauma as an adult and it's impacting you and your family. Get the help you need and reach out because it really does make a difference in how you're healing, how your health is going, and how you parent.
And those you keep around you. Because if you're trying to
Yes.
heal and be the best version of yourself, but you're hanging around people who say, well, I was raised like that and I turned out okay. Well, really, you didn't. Okay, right? But it keeps, it's like a slippery slope.
Yep. Find that support.
So your mission of your organization, you say, is the center seeks to reduce the trauma to the child victim, which is often perpetrated by the investigative process. You assist the non-offending family in regaining maximum functioning. You increase child safety and hold more offenders accountable through improved prosecution of child abuse cases while ensuring the child victims and their caregivers are treated within their rights and in accordance with the Child First doctrine.
Yes. It's a big mission.
It
Big mission.
is. Most missions are maybe a sentence and a half. That's about 5.
Yeah. It's a lot.
But that shows that there's a need.
There's a need. We really want to support the parents and the caregivers because honestly, they're the best indicator as to how the child will recover. If we are not supporting the parents and the caregivers or educating them and getting them the resources that this child is going to need, that they're going to need, they're not going to follow up on transporting the child to counseling or the medical appointments or the court prep appointments. We have to support the parents and the caregivers and give them the resources that they need. And children, sometimes they don't want to sleep alone anymore, or they're now afraid of the dark when they didn't used to be, or little kids might regress and start wetting the bed when they've been potty trained for years. So helping prepare the parents for those things that either they've already experienced or might be coming, like just helping them and supporting them and all that, and finding them resources is very important.
And I think, just to add on, if a parent has been through trauma, it doesn't mean you have to repeat that.
Right.
It does not mean you have to do what you saw, but instead you can remember how you felt and do your best to make sure that doesn't happen to your kid. I know one of the things, because I was a single parent, one of the things I really focused on, and nothing happened to me, but I remember just hearing stories about kids being forced to hug uncles, I told my kids very early, let me tell you something. You can fist bump or you can wave. You are not going to be forced to hug an uncle, an aunt, a cousin, and
Right.
and air quotes because sometimes people want to play that, that's our uncle. No, well, it's not. and they, be firm and be respectful, but always know I have your back.
Right. Right. Your body is yours. And if you don't feel like hugging anybody, I am not going to make you.
Yeah. It's just,
Nope.
I don't know if I just watched enough Law and Order SVU or something. But
It did have its educational points, I will
It
say.
did.
It did have its educational points.
yeah, I can only imagine you and your team watching shows like that, because I know when I watch shows that have a newsroom and you think, I mean, they're solving crimes in one day, and that's not
I'll
the
tell you what,
reality.
yeah, that's tough when you go to have a jury trial and you're you're going to be fighting the jurors who think you ought to have all of this and it should all be lined out and there should be this perfect package of DNA evidence and
Right.
and no, we're not going to have that in every case, and especially in the sexual abuse cases, because it's done where there are no witnesses and it's done in secret and kids don't disclose right after it happens. It's
Right.
usually, weeks, months, some people years before they'll disclose what's happened to them, if at all. And so that is a battle that we fight daily, is like we can't always deliver it in a pretty little package. And I know it's hard for the state's attorneys to decide how they're going to charge or if they're going to charge, because it will happen quite frequently that we will believe the child, we will have an interview, all of the team will feel this has happened, but if the state's attorney doesn't feel that they can prove it beyond a reasonable doubt, it's going to be pretty tough for them to want to spend the time, energy, resources to charge a case and fight a case, because they're overwhelmed too.
Unfortunately, because this is happening too much.
Yes.
Did you ever know that you would be so legally proficient with understanding court cases and how the system moves and all the nuts and bolts of that?
No, I mean, that was just never on my radar at all when I was younger, and now building up experience, having accompanied many families to court, also going through my own adoptions and the foster care system. The other thing is that different states' attorneys' offices run completely different depending on the leadership of who's in the office. And so even though some of the dynamics of the cases and progression remain the same, some of the dynamics change, and, charging decisions, what might not have been charged a few years ago will now be charged. So it's learning as we go. But that's also the joy of the multidisciplinary team, is that we're all in that together. And we have that communication. We meet at least once a month, the law enforcement, DCFS, state's attorney, the mental health providers, and it's like we staff every case pretty much that comes through.
Well, I'm so thankful that you're on the side of the kids, because it's heavy, it's a big deal, but they matter. And knowing that they have you and your team advocating for them is a big deal indeed. All right, when we come back, we're going to talk more about how people can help, because there are, I'm sure, people listening saying, I had no idea this one place did all of this. And as I've mentioned, it costs money and time, and you can give one or both. And you're going to tell us after the break how they can do just that. Stay with us. We'll be right back. To our discussion about ways in which we can protect our youngest residents, right? Because they sometimes have been through so much unimaginable for us as adults, but they're going through it. And so helping them to lead some sort of normalcy, I should say, in their life. It's because of guests like Jean. She is the director of the Child First Center, which is a children's advocacy center covering Macon and Piatt County. I'm reinforcing that because you have a big job to do, and you do it well, and you've done it for so many years. And you were just saying that now the entire state is covered.
Correct. We have a state chapter that we belong to, the Children's Advocacy Centers of Illinois, and it has been their mission to make sure that our entire state had Children's Advocacy Center services. And so finally, in the last couple of years, every county in the state of Illinois has coverage by a Children's Advocacy Center. So there may not be an actual physical center in that county, but every county has services available to them.
And as you mentioned earlier, if you know of abuse, 1-800-2 825-ABUSE. That is the 1-800 number, state-run, where parents, children can get help 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And then locally, 217-422-6294 is a number that people can call as well, too, if they'd like some help.
Yes. If they call us, we will try to get them to the right place to get the services that they need.
Okay. You brought some literature with you. I wanted to give you an opportunity to show that. Because working with kids, you try to make things digestible, not just for them, but also their family. What did you bring with you?
I brought with me, this is a guide, online safety. So it's just a parent's guide to some of, the controls, how to supervise social media. Of course, this changes on the daily, like as fast as our technology grows, and apps change daily, all of that. And then there's also the flip side is in Spanish, so it's English on one side, Spanish on the other. So it's on, like apps, things like that, how to monitor a kid's use of social media, technology, and those types of things.
Wait, you just bring up a really good point, because since you have the bilingual guide there, that means you have someone on the other end of that phone call who can speak Spanish?
We don't have a whole lot of capacity, but one of the things we do is I contract with a voice interpreter service so that we can access interpreters. We don't have a Spanish-speaking staff. We're really pretty small, but we do have access to interpreter service. And one of the things that I did years ago before we even had any money to do that is I just learned to get an app on my phone. So there were some families and some have languages that just aren't very common around here. And so I had an app on my phone just so I could just flip back and forth to communicate and get stuff put on my computer so that we could get our paperwork in other languages.
Because in certain languages, one word could bring on a whole different meaning.
Totally different.
But I bet your clientele, and they're going through some of the worst times in their lives, but seeing how hard you're working to try to understand.
We try. And so it's having that interpretation service available in the interview with the interviewer and the child. Then we have to have someone who can also relay that, interpret for law enforcement and DCFS who are in the observation room. And then we also have the advocate in the meantime out there meeting with family or caregivers. And so we really kind of have to have three things happening at one time when it comes to that. And that's pretty hard to find, and it's expensive. So we found this interpreter service. And then, it's all the things you don't think about that then you have to consider is that even with an interpreter service, the things that they might hear in an interview, if they have their own trauma response, preparing them for what they might hear so you have the right interpreter, because not everybody can be present for this type of work and do it well. And the last thing we need would be an interpreter gasping with their mouth down around their feet going, oh,
that's terrible.
Yeah, they can't
things
say,
like that.
Don't do that.
You can't do that.
You have to have a really good poker face.
Ooh, I'm glad you mentioned money, because this is expensive to do what you do as far as time-wise, yes, but money-wise. And I always think about there may be, because this show, thankfully, because of our app, goes far and wide, there may be someone right now watching saying, you know what? I was victimized as a child, and by the grace of God, I'm where I am today, and so I want to give back. How do I give back? Where will those funds go?
For our center, we are strictly grant funded. So it's the Victims of Crime Act VOCA funds, which are federal funds that trickle down to us, the DCFS, a state grant, violent crime victim assistance through the Attorney General's office. So we are strictly grant funded. And then we have a Friends of the Child First Center who hosts events for us and helps us with the letter writing campaign and things like that. So we function under Macon County, but it's whatever we bring in is just pass-through money. So donations, anybody can call the center at 217-422-6294. Get on our Facebook. You'll find a link to our Friends. One of the things we're working, we've had some technical issues, but we will try to help. But we would love for people, just give me a call or mail us check. We have about a $520,000 budget, and that funds 6 full-time and a part-time staff. and we see around 300 children, and then another 300 caregivers. So we're serving somewhere between 600 and 800 individuals a year. And one of the things that we do is we don't want any family to have to pay for counseling or therapy. That gets expensive. Plus, it's hard to find the quality that we need. And for our accreditation standards, we can only refer to people who have certain qualifications. So a lot of the funds that we raise go towards paying for that counseling for children and their families to make sure that they get the quality that they need, helping to transport them there if that's an issue, gas cards. We're not allowed from our grants to pay for any consumable supplies. So we do like to give kids a little bottle of water or an individually wrapped snack or something while they're there, or in emergency situations, like in the homicides, things that happen after hours, weekend hours. Sometimes we have to feed families, like the kids haven't eaten, all day and they need to take a nap, or they need a slice of pizza, something. So any of those donated funds go for things that the grants typically won't cover, consumable supplies, and then the counseling money is always expended before the end of the year. Office supplies, all the things.
Yeah, because you think about if a family had to pay for counseling, they've been through so much, that's the first thing to go.
Right.
That's the first thing. Hey, we're fine. We'll make it work.
We'll be okay.
Yeah.
Or like I had a grandma who, and her daughter was murdered, and she took on all of these kids. And so her whole life was rearranged, and she's like, well, I just want to get the kids in counseling. Like, just work on getting the kids in counseling. Like, I'll be fine. I'm like, if the foundation falls,
That's right.
Grandma.
That's right there.
You're going to lose the kids. So let's take care of the foundation. Let's get you in and the kids.
And I think about people who say, I don't have much and I can't give much, but what a gift card could do. $20 gift card that will allow snacks to be purchased,
right,
or gas.
I have to tell you, last week, we were totally out of snacks, totally out of bottled water. I threw a little something on Facebook on, I think it was Thursday morning. We were totally out of everything. And there's no money left in the budget, and I didn't have any time. But I put a little shout out on Facebook on Thursday morning, and by Thursday afternoon, I lost count of how many cases of water and individually wrapped snacks. So I was able to put on Facebook right away on Friday morning, thank you all. We are set for the summer, but don't forget us come September. And probably the biggest heartwarming thing of that, it made our day as a staff also. And then we had grandparents and parents whose kids had utilized our services a few years ago, actually quite a few years ago. And they came in and thanked us for what we did for them years ago and said, we had no idea. And so we'll be back. And here's 3 cases of water and a whole bunch of, snack crackers, and goldfish are popular. So they had brought us a whole stack, and they thanked us for what we did years ago. And so that meant a lot to us.
Those are the success stories that I really want to delve into. We're up against our last break. When we come back, we'll talk more about that and some of your personal and professional goals moving forward. And since I'm the new kid on the block, where am I going? Where do I need to visit in your city, in the community, as I give back, just like you? All right, stay with us. We'll be right back after this. Back to the new kid on the block. Really appreciate you joining us today. Jean Wolgast is the director of the Child First Center, and they do all things when it comes to protecting the children, protecting the family, and helping them to realize while they've been through something, it doesn't define them. And that is so very important for our young people to know, Jean. When we were talking during the break, you wanted to make sure that we touched on something very, very important. Before we get there, though, let's talk about relationships. For teenagers getting into relationships, adults introducing other adults into the family relationship, what should and should not be happening?
In the teenage relationships, I just want to make sure that parents educate themselves and educate their teenagers on what is a safe and unsafe dating relationship, what domestic violence can look like, whether or not it's, I mean, there can be physical hitting, that type of thing, but manipulation, like how to identify signs of manipulation in unhealthy relationships in general. And then keep those things in mind when you're in a relationship and you have somebody new that you want to introduce your kids to. Like it's tough. It's really tough. And, just be cautious about who your children are spending, who they're spending their time with and where. Teach your kids about safe and unsafe touching, about manipulation, about when somebody says, they might hurt mom if I tell. I mean, there are just a whole lot of red flags out there. So just be cautious in your relationships, like get to know somebody really, really well before you have your children around them. The other thing is sometimes it's hard. Like master manipulators are just master manipulators. And so 98% of the time in sex abuse cases, it's somebody that the child knew and trusted or that worked their way into the family and the family knew and trusted. It's generally not a stranger. And so that's tough. So if somebody wants to spend more time with the kids than they do with the adults, that's an issue. Somebody might offer to, take your kid to school or pick them up from school or practice all the time, and you just get that weird feeling, trust that weird feeling. I think we've rationalized ourselves right out of trusting our gut, and I say trust your gut.
And even I think about in areas where it's predominantly children, let's say like a water park, a playground, things that kids should be able to be kids. And if you see a man or a woman, because, hey,
That's right.
bad comes in different forms, but lurking around, watching children and videotaping and taking pictures. And I always tell people, I'm not trying to scare people, but you have to be aware.
Right.
Aware of your surroundings, aware of your kids' surroundings, because kids just want to be kids.
Right. And most of the time. The other thing I will say is it's not even just the adults anymore. We have a huge increase in child-on-child sexual abuse and sexual assault. Sometimes it's kids of equal ages, but most of the time it's older kids. And so I would say, like, if your child goes across the street to play in the park, or like your example of the water park, have your children in your line of sight. And if they go behind some big thing, some big slide, do what you can to get a point of view where you can see what's happening. We have lots and lots of child-on-child abuse, and my kids would get mad at me, especially, and my grandkids still get frustrated too, but I'm like, nobody goes behind a closed door in my house. All doors stay open. And my kids hated that they only got to go to sleepovers with two families who I knew really, really well. I'm like, sorry, because they have the same rules. Like,
that's exactly right.
The door's open.
That's
and
exactly
somebody's
right.
There.
I used to, again, as a single parent, I would, and people would laugh, and my kids, they knew I needed license plate numbers. I need to know who's in that house. I would like to see driver's licenses, and I would have those run because I need to know who's around you. And if you have a problem with it, then you just won't be going. And
that's just the way it is. And I would say, if kids want to come to my house, that's okay. And I would offer my information to the parents whose kids were coming over.
Yes.
Like, okay, this is who I am. This is where I live. This is what I do for a living. And here's my number. And here's my whatever.
All the things to make them feel
comfortable. Your kids are welcome here, but here's the deal. And then as they got to be teenagers, it's like, okay, because I know you're teenagers and I'm going to keep an eye on you, but your car keys come upstairs with me.
Oh, that's good. No, that's good. I mean, the thing is I always say, my job is to protect you, and sometimes that could be from you. And this isn't a popularity contest, but I know the mission that I have and have been charged with by having the greatest job, and that's being your mom. So there's that.
Yep. And and I talk to them all the time, and my kids, I embarrass them publicly, no extra charge. But, there are a million ways to say the word breast. There are a million ways to label a penis.
Yep.
And yet kids are embarrassed when we teach them the proper names. But it helps keep them safe when kids, if there's something happens and they need to disclose, or that, we have them in for an interview, one of the initial steps of the interview is identifying what kids call their body parts, because there are a million names.
Yeah, because those
every
cutesy
family's
names,
got their own little cutesy, like the melons, the the whatever. Like there's so many cutesy names, or they're embarrassed to say the real word. And so one of the things we offer at the center is that we have safe and unsafe touching, like coloring books and different books on how to have these difficult conversations and talk with kids about their body parts and safe and unsafe touching. It's one of the things we, love to get those out there. But just talk to your kids about body safety and the parts of your swimsuit. The parts that your swimsuit covers, other people should not be touching those, looking at those, taking pictures of those, nor should you be taking pictures of your own parts and sending them to somebody else. Like, have those conversations just like you would a fire drill or a tornado drill or whatever else.
That's right, because those pictures, even though someone says they are going to delete them, they live forever somewhere, and they will that will follow you as you grow out of that stage and phase, and others will have access to you in a way that they shouldn't. Okay, real quick, because we're up against the end of the show. I want you to tell me about this young person who brings about a smile and her victory ride with Bikers Against Child Abuse.
Bikers Against Child Abuse, BACA. This young child had, she had to testify in court regarding sexual abuse at the hands of a step-parent. And it was so tough for her. But she made it through, gave impact statement, did all the things. And at the culmination of the court case, we had talked with them about BACA and the services of BACA, and she had developed a relationship with them. And they got her, her colors and her vest and her name and her badge. And at the end of the court case, she got to ride on the back of the motorcycle with one of her favorite reps and do her victory lap, around the courthouse and in the parking lot. And that was phenomenal to see a case have such a successful culmination, and the smile on her face to know it was done and she was safe and he was being shipped, and that was that.
Boom, just like that. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for sharing your time. Thank you for advocating for our young people. Thank you for helping us to understand how we can be better with our words.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Anytime. And I think that what I need to do as the new kid on the block is to get more involved with what you're doing. We're going to talk offline. Thanks. You're very welcome. All right, that phone number again, 1-800-25-ABUSE. If you'd like to call and report, if you need help, help is there, so please utilize it. Thanks for joining us for this edition of the New Kid on the Block. Hope you have a great day. I look forward to seeing you back here, same time, same place, next time.